Hello, and welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we are so excited because we are bringing back some favorite retired stamp sets for a limited time. And we're going to be bringing back Wish You Were Here and its coordinating dies. And now we have brand new coloring stencils for them. And we're also going to bring back Wish You Were Here too, its coordinating dies. And now we have brand new coloring stencils for these. And here you can see how well these go together. The cards with these turn out so very cute. And we are also going to be bringing back an old favorite called You've Got Mail with its coordinating dies, and now we have brand new coloring stencils for these too. And you may be asking yourself, well, why did you bring back these specific retired sets? Well, we decided to bring them back because my son Miles absolutely loves maps, and he has since he was like younger than 3 years old. He loves looking at maps and studying them, learning about all of the countries around the world. And when he saw this stamp set in my stash, he just fell in love, and I knew we had to bring it back. It's so cute and so much fun to use, and I love that it has a globe in it as well. I think we have 4 different globes at our house. Like, he just loves them so much. And so it's so exciting to bring that back. And then we thought You've Got Mail was a really nice companion to the Wish You Were Here stamp set. Here you can see that my stamps are so very well loved. I have used these so much. This is one of my favorite stamp sets back when it came out, and I'm so excited to bring it back again. And one of my favorite ways to use this postcard was to feature some of my favorite critters. And so I thought it would be fun to take this stamp set, which is back from 2012 that we're bringing back now from the vault, and take one of my favorite newer sets, which is Yappy Birthday, and combine them together. And I just think this is so fun. And so I'm just masking off some edges with some Post-it note tape, or you could use a Post-it as well. And then I'm going to stamp some of these cute little dogs into this. And I used to do this all the time with the postcard. I would stamp some of my favorite critters in there and have this be a fun little frame for them and a fun area to create a scene in. And so the Wish You Were Here stamps are from 2014, and the You've Got Mail are from 2012. So these sets are from a really long time ago, right at the beginning of Lawn Fawn, which I think is really fun to have these back. And of course, bringing back these stamp sets from being retired is such a blast. And so if you have any suggestions for what you would like to see next, make sure to leave it in the comments below. So there you can see I stamped a cute sentiment there onto those lines. That's also a fun place to personalize it with someone's name. And I stamped some balloons as well. And then I'm just going to add some color to these adorable images because they are just so much fun. And I got some brand new markers, so I thought it'd be fun to play along with them. I'm even going to fill in the background for a fun pop of color. And then next up, Shari is going to show you 2 incredible cards using these sets that are back from retirement for a limited time. So take it away, Shari.
Hello friends, today's card is using the Wish You Were Here and Wish You Were Here 2 stamp sets. I am stamping these in Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink on Nina white cardstock, and I'm going to be using the new coloring stencils to color them in. When this set first came out, I actually paper pieced this whole map together with some pattern paper, cutting out every single little state. It was a great look, but it took a lot of time. So I'm excited that I can color the map with the coloring stencils now. So I'm kind of revisiting an old design to recreate something new. Here's a look at the ink colors I'm going to be using for my images today. And here's a look at the coloring stencils for the stamp set. There are 5 stencils for the main map, so you can use up to 5 colors for the states, which I'm going to do today. But I'm actually going to start with the little globe, which I just love this little globe. I think it's so cute. So I'm starting out with celery stick ink for the land mass of the globe. I think this would also be fun to color in the fun colors that we see on globes, like at the library. But I'm going with traditional colors, so I'm switching it over for the ocean. I'm using merman. I'm going all over with the merman, and then I'm actually going to come in with some forget-me-not and shade some of that blue at the bottom. And look at that cool look that you get with those 2 shades. Now I am going to continue with the two-tone shading for the map here. So I'm starting out with my first color, just like the ocean. I'm using merman. Then I'm going to grab that forget-me-not and just add a bit of that darker blue to the edge of the states. So I went all over with merman, and now I'm adding some shading. And when you pull this away, they're going to have a really cool ombre look. Then I can move on to the next section of my map. For this one, I am going to do yellows and oranges. So I'm starting out with sunflower all over for all of these states. I thought that coloring California with the yellow for the Sunshine State would be very appropriate. And then I'm going to pull in some carrot ink for my secondary color. Now for most of these, I am doing my shading kind of to the left or the bottom left corner. But when you get to these little tiny states, you just add a little bit on there just to give it a little bit of interest. Now I'm moving on to my third color, and we're going to call this layer the Libby layer because my friend Libby lived in Texas, Georgia, and Michigan, and they all happen to be on this same stencil, which I think is so fun. So of course, I picked purple for the colors of these states because that is her favorite color. So I'm using grape jelly ink for my base for this layer. And then I'm going to grab that forget-me-not again and add some blue. This time I'm kind of going in the opposite corner, just so it doesn't match exactly my little teal states. For layer number 4, this one has my home state of North Carolina, and I decided to go with some celery stick ink for that fresh green look. I live in a very green and lush part of the state of North Carolina, so I thought this would be appropriate as well. And for this one, I'm actually going to pull back in that merman ink, so I have green and aqua. And then finally, we're to our last layer of states, and for this, I am going with bubblegum ink for my base layer. Then I'm going to come in with raspberry ink. You can see my little palette over there when I was trying to figure out the ink colors I wanted to use. So this is that darker pink color you see at the top. And that finishes off the lower 48 states. So now we need to do Alaska and Hawaii. So for Hawaii, I decided to go with those same warm pink tones because I felt like those were underrepresented in the map at the top. So that really goes well with the tropical island of Hawaii as well. And then, of course, we have Alaska. Now, something that would be fun to do with this map too is you can mask things off. You could color everything the same and only color the state in which you live or only color the states which you visited. This would be really fun to put on some scrapbook pages or travel journals as well. For Alaska, since this is a really big state, I actually used 3 colors. So I have my celery stick and my merman, just like my green states, but then I pulled in the forget-me-not to add a third color at the bottom, and I love the cool look that this gives. Of course, there are coordinating dies that go with this stamp set, so I can cut out all of my images, and I am ready to put them on my card. There's also a tiny little heart stamp in this set, which I just love. I'm stamping a couple out in bubblegum ink because there is a coordinating die, so I'm going to make 3 tiny little hearts that I can add to my card. But you can simply just stamp this directly onto the images too if you wanted to mark a special place on the map. So for the sentiment on this card, I went with the sentiment in the set that says, "You mean the world to me." I love the scripty words and the mix of fonts on this. I am stamping this onto a strip of mist colored cardstock and just trimming it down. Then I'm going to create some rainbow stripe strips to tuck behind it. So I'm using the rainbow stripe washi tape and just putting that on some white cardstock. Then I'm actually just going to trim this down into some strips. I did this so it was nice and straight and I didn't see any of the cardstock peeking through. And I decided to trim it into 2 strips so that I could easily adjust what peeks out from behind the sentiment strip. I'm adding some double-sided tape to the back of this strip with the sentiment. And I will just peel off that backer paper and I will take the first little strip and line it up to where that rainbow stripe just kind of peeks out above the solid cardstock. Then I can do the same with the other one, making sure they're nice and even. I'm actually making sure my stripes kind of line up too, and I can trim off the excess there. Now this sentiment strip is longer than I need it to be, so I will be trimming it down some more as I add it to my card. I'm also using one of the postage rectangle stackables to cut a piece of spiffy speckles paper, and I'm using some speckled eggshell paper cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 as my background. And I'm going to do some stamping using some of the stamps from the You've Got Mail stamp set. First, I'm trimming this down a little bit. I want that globe to be where this sentiment strip starts, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim that. I marked the center with a pencil so I knew where to trim that at so that my globe doesn't cover up any of my sentiment. I'm not going to glue this together just yet, but I was just kind of prepping how that's going to be. Now I'm working on my background using the You've Got Mail stamp set. There are some really fun stamps in here with the postage and the cancellation marks and all the stamps and things that you would see on your mail. So I'm just using the same colors that I used to color my map to stamp my images on the background. And as I work my way around and stamp these, I am laying my pieces on here to kind of make sure that these little stamps that I'm stamping are peeking out from behind my images and my postage panel. I am going to pull in one of the stamps from the Wish You Were Here for the background, which is this compass. And I will fill in a little bit more with that cancellation mark in that pink ink. So I wanted this to look like a piece of mail that's been through the mail, which is why I use speckled eggshell as my cardstock base. And I'm just using some pizza crust to kind of darken up the edges just very lightly. You can kind of see there that pizza crust just makes it look a little bit worn. And then I can add this whole background piece to my card base. Next, I'm adding some foam tape to the back of my postage rectangle panel, and when I add this to my card, I do not want it to be straight. I wanted the look of like a pile of mail or a pile of maps, so I am turning it a little bit so it is not straight on the card. Then I'm adding my globe to the end of my sentiment banner with some liquid glue, right there where I trimmed it, so that's going right behind that vertical piece that holds the globe. Then I'm going to add this to my card with a little bit of foam where that globe overhangs that postage rectangle, and then the rest I will add with some liquid glue. So I will just line this up right along the bottom of that postage rectangle at that same angle. And I need to add a couple more foam squares underneath where this goes off the side. I'm going to trim this at the edge of the card base. So not at the edge of the postage rectangle, but the card base. So I needed to support that with a couple more foam squares. For the map, I want to pop it up as well, so I'm just laying this on the rectangle. I'm just adding foam squares all over the back, but up there where main is, obviously that's overhanging, and I'm going to add 2 foam squares. So this one is double popped where it overhangs the edge of that postage rectangle. So now for Alaska, I am going to tuck this up in that top left corner. So a little foam square where it overhangs and some adhesive runner. And then for Hawaii, I was going to put it below the sentiment initially, but I liked how it filled in this kind of empty space between the map and the sentiment. So that's where I decided to put Hawaii. Then I have my little hearts that I cut out earlier. So of course, I am going to add one right to Western North Carolina where I live, just with a teeny tiny dot of glue. These are basically acting like my embellishments on this card. Then I'm also going to add one over here on North America. And then my third one, I'm just going to fill in down here below the sentiment with the third little heart. And then here is my finished card. I love those ombre states that I got using the stencil. I think they're so fun. I also like all these stamps on the background, and I'm really glad I got to play with this stamp set again. Now for my second card, I'm using You've Got Mail, which this is a really fun set with all those kind of registration marks and stuff that I used on the first card, but it has this really fun postcard. For the postcard, I'm stamping it in River Rock ink on speckled eggshell, again for that kind of worn postage look. And I'm going to stamp a whole bunch of stamps onto this postcard. So first, I'm starting with the little stripes at the bottom, and I'm using lobster ink. Now you can stamp these twice, you can shift them over and get that fun blue and red stripe look, but I'm just going with one this time. Then I'm using the little sentiment that says sending love your way, and I've lined it up so that I can stamp it directly on to the lines of the postcard. Of course, there is a stamp, which is really fun to color. And we have our postage mark, which I'm going to use some blue ink for that. Then we have the cancellation marks, which I went back to that lobster ink. And we have our fun little airmail stamps. So I'm using some merman for this little airplane. And then I will use the Forget Me Not again for the airmail stamp. And I just think it's really fun that we created this whole postcard. We didn't even break out any markers to do it. We just use our inks and our stamps. Now I'm using a heart that is from the Wish You Were Here set, but I just thought it was a nice touch to add those little hearts that look like they're hand-drawn on the postcard. Now for the mailbox and the envelopes, I'm stamping these in jet black ink, and I'm stamping the envelopes in River Rock, which is gray. And I'm going to be using the stencil to color this big mailbox, which I think is a perfect use for the stencil. I'm also using that little tiny heart from Wish You Were Here to add a little heart to my envelopes. So I'm going to go ahead and use the coordinating dies to cut these out, even before I color my mailbox with my coloring stencil. So here are all my pieces. That postcard is basically done with all the stamping, but we do need to color our mailbox. And I can easily do this with the coordinating stencil using a grip mat to hold it in place. And I am coloring this in with some Forget Me Not ink. I'm going to go all over it and put a whole layer of the blue. Now this stencil does have a opening for the little drawer that opens for the mail to go in separately, but I'm actually going to color it all the same. Then I'm coming in with some fish tank ink, which is a darker blue, and adding some shading. Look at how cool that looks. Then I'm going to move over to the drawer and do the same thing on this using Forget Me Not and then fish tank. And then of course for the little handle, I'm just going to use black for that. And I thought it would be fun, this is something I did on the original card I made with this set, is to cut a little slit right along that line of the place where you put the mail in, and that will allow you to tuck an envelope right in there, which I think is a really fun look. So I'm just using my X-Acto knife to cut right along that line, and look at how cute that is tucked in there. Now for the background, I'm using the stitched ripple backdrop and some spiffy speckles paper. I wanted to create a background that had some texture but was not too distracting because we have a lot of large elements to put on this card. I'm also using the Over the Rainbow die set just for the cloud, but I am going to create some ground using that, which I think is a fun thing to do with cloud dies. I do it often. So I'm using a green pattern paper from the Really Rainbow Petite paper pack, and that's just going to create some fun ground for my mailbox to sit on. I also pulled out the paper clips die set, and I'm pulling out the two little heart paper clips and the hello, and I'm going to cut those out, and I think these are going to be really fun attached to the top of my postcard. Now before I start to assemble, I'm adding just the slightest bit of inking to the edges of my background piece, just to kind of define those edges a little bit and make those fun stitching details stand out. Then I can add this to my card base. I'm adding foam to the back of my ground piece here so that it can be popped up at the bottom. And because I use the over the rainbow die to cut this out, it is going to be a little smaller than the width of my card. So I'm just going to have a fun blue spiffy speckles border around all three sides of this little ground piece here. To hold my little envelope in my mailbox, I'm just putting a piece of tape on the back. That will allow me to kind of take that envelope and bend it forward a little bit and give it some dimension. Then I've got my postcard and I'm going to figure out where I want those little paper clips. I decided I wanted the hello on the right because it's nice and bold and it will balance out the heavy mailbox on the left. I cut that from some black sparkle cardstock. Then I have my two little heart ones. They're going to overlap over here. They're cut from guava and raspberry cardstock. And I will just secure those on the back side once I have them where I want them, also with a little piece of tape. And I like kind of turning them a little bit so they're not perfectly straight on the postcard. Then my postcard is going to be glued directly to the background. So I'm putting my mailbox there to kind of see how high I want it to go. And I will add some adhesive all over the back and on my little paper clips too. I want that mailbox to kind of fit right there in that empty space on the left side. So for this, I need to add some foam squares all over the back, a little bit of liquid glue just on the feet where it's going to touch my green piece of paper. And I can take this, bend that little envelope up a little bit. I'm actually going to do it again once I get it stuck into place. I just think that has a fun look, like it's not so flat going into the mailbox. And then I have my other envelope, and I decided I needed one more element. So I colored and cut out this little mouse from You Autumn Know. He looks like he's really excited to check the mail, and I thought he was the perfect little addition to this card. Then as far as glitter goes, I added some to that little heart paper clip, but I didn't want to add it to any of my stamping. I also realized I needed just a bit of glue to hold down the ends of the paper clips so that they didn't get caught on anything, so that's what I'm doing there. Then I also took my stickles and I added just some dots of glitter around on the background. So there is going to be some sparkle, but I'm not glittering any of the images. And then here is my finished card with the You've Got Mail stamp set. I love that fun postcard and that big mailbox. And let me bring in my Wish You Were Here card as well so you can see both of the cards that I made in today's video.
I am so in love with these cards, Shari. They are so cute, and the states look amazing colored in with the coloring stencil. And then I absolutely love the postcard that you created in the cute little mouse with the little envelopes. It's just so sweet. And next up, we have some incredible cards by the design team. And this one by Grace is so cute. Our Card Critter stamp set is a perfect match for this super cute Wish You Were Here set. Isn't that just adorable? And I love the little paper clips that she added on there too. This card here by Shari is so much fun. I love the rainbow papers mixed in with the books and the globe. It's perfect and really great for end of the year or back to school. Elise's cards with the layered postcards are so sweet, and that giant scripty hello is a perfect match on top of this. I think this is so adorable and would be fun with so many of your favorite pattern papers too. This next card here by Megan is just so sweet, and I love how she added a cute little critter onto the postcard. It's just adorable. Next up, we have a super cute card by Yainea, and I love how she added the arrow and colored in California and with the two little skunks hugging. It is so sweet. This card here by Jen is so much fun. I love the bright colors, and the stripes are perfect for that fun airmail feel. This card by Audrey is too much fun. It's so perfect with the stenciled palm trees. I love the mailbox with the cute little hearts too. Lynette's card is super cute, and I love how she showed that you don't have to color in the states. It looks really cute just stamped on its own too. And then this card here by Letitia is so much fun, and I love the whole airmail feel and the colors that she used. And then I thought it would be fun to bring back some cards back from 2012 and 2014, and this one here by Shari is all paper pieced in so gorgeous. I love that this globe is paper pieced nice too, and I love how the little paper is layered off at an angle on the side. It just looks amazing. The heat embossed states look absolutely beautiful, and I love how you can add a little heart onto the state where you're missing someone. And then this fun card with the colorful arrows is just so adorable, and it's so much fun to look back at these awesome cards from so many years ago. This card here by Shari even features our Critters in the Burbs dog, which is the very first stamp that we ever designed, and I love how cute he looks with the mailbox. And then this one here by Elena is so sweet, and it features Gleeful Gardens, another one of my favorite set, and it's so perfect with the mailbox and the snail mail theme. So we cannot wait to see all of the cards that you create with Wish You Were Here and also You've Got Mail, so make sure to share them with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!